Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and welcome to Hilaal Live. This is the Johannesburg segment of the show. We'd like to thank you, the viewer on Hilaal TV, for staying with us. Now, South Africa's formal non-agricultural sector created 39,000 jobs in the second quarter of this year. This was according to the latest quarterly employment statistics released by Stats SA last week. Now, the increases in employment were recorded in the business services, mining, manufacturing, and electricity sectors. The decreases, though, were in manufacturing, transport, trade, and construction. Total employment increased by 104,000 year-on-year between June last year and June this year. Joining us now to discuss this is Stats SA's Employment Statistics Director, Matlapane Masupye. Mr. Masupye, good evening. Thank you so much for joining us here on Hilaal Live.
Evening, and it's a pleasure to talk to you guys, to make your listeners and users at large about the available information. Thank you so much.
No, it's an absolute pleasure. Okay, so obviously Stats SA works on GDP growth, amongst other statistics. The quarterly employment statistics, talk to us about the gathering of the data, especially in the second quarter, just to give the viewers an idea of how this is actually collected.
Thank you so much. I think it is very important to explain the two labor survey within Stats before I can, just to make sure that listeners understand. We have two labor surveys, that is QLFS and QES. QLFS is quarterly labor force survey, and QES is quarterly employment statistics survey. The collection method of QLFS is household-based, whereby we visit household to ask them questions, and we refer to it as the supply of labor type of survey. Whereby QES, on the other side, we send questionnaires to companies, then we label it as the business side of labor, rather the demanding side of labor. So from the QS side, the first thing which we do, we dispatch the questionnaire to respondents using our emails, and we then get the questionnaire back through the emails. And those questionnaires are captured, and normally after capturing, we have people who are doing some checking to compare the current information and the previous quarter. Thank you.
No, thank you for that, Mr. Masupye. Okay, Mr. Masupye, there was an increase, the number sitting at 39,000. Now, as South Africans, we try to look at things from a half-glass full scenario. So there is some sort of positivity with regards to there, isn't there?
Yes, true. But before I talk to the consolidated number, I think it's also important to give listeners or viewers the breakdown of information within the survey. We're not talking just the total number of people employed. We can even divide it into two parts, your full-time and part-time. By full-time, we are referring to those working 40 hours or more per week, and part-time are those working less than 40 hours per week. The reason I'm raising this is very interesting because you have permanent employees, but who are on part-time basis. And you have temporary employees who are on full-time basis. I'll explain what we mean by that. You have a permanent staff, but working lesser hours. The reason being she or he's taking care of somebody at home. This I thought, let me bring this part of the report. Let me go back to your questionnaire. The result for June quarter indicated that 10,078,000 people were employed. Like we've indicated, it's an increase of 39,000, and year-on-year is an increase of 104,000. Let's talk to the full-time and the part-time as I indicated. Full-time decreased by 25,000 quarter-on-quarter, and also year-on-year is a decrease of 46,000. While part-time, on the other hand, it increased in both period, part-time and full-time, quarter and yearly. Starting with quarterly movement, part-time increased by 64,000 quarter-on-quarter, and also year-on-year by 150,000. Then let's talk to the industries which contributed to that overall of 39,000. The first industry, community services, which increased by 40,000. who are in this industry, community services? It is consists mostly of the government departments, your national, municipalities, extra budgetaries, and universities and technical. It's very important so that people must understand that we are saying government created 40, but we know that there is money and all, there's no money in all those. The second industry which contributed to the positive is business services, which increased by 12,000, followed by mining, an increase of 2,000, and lastly, electricity, which increased by 1,000. However, there are industries which offset the increase. We are going to explain the big increase. The industries as follows. The first one is manufacturing, which dropped by 10,000, followed by transport, a drop of 3,000, trade, a drop of 2,000, and lastly, construction, a drop of 1,000.
Mr. Masupye, thank you for that explanation in terms of talking about the industries in which the increases happen. I want to focus on the increases on which it happened, business services, but the one mining and manufacturing, because we know obviously during the second quarter, load shedding, which of course continues to affect many industries within South Africa, those would have been the sectors where a lot of load shedding would have taken quite a huge toll on it. So it is quite surprising, isn't it, Mr. Masupye, that you've got mining and manufacturing actually being in the sectors where there is an increase of employment?
No, let me correct. It's not. It's community services, business services, and mining which showed an increase. But we need to be very careful. The survey is not meant to tap into the impact of load shedding as such, because the objective is just to collect number of people employed and the gross earnings. But they do sometimes indicate that the company laid off few people because of the challenge with load shedding. But it is not, we cannot certainly say manufacturing, the drop in manufacturing, the drop in transport, the drop in construction is due to load shedding, because the survey is not meant to tap on that.
Mr. Masupye, what is obviously quite positive is that, of course, employment increasing by 104,000. And this is, of course, a year-on-year taking June last year to June this year. We've got, of course, another two quarters which Stats SA will be conducting. I know I don't ask, and I know when we have Stats SA on our show, we don't want to ask them to look into a crystal ball and predict. But do you foresee maybe these increases occurring for the next two quarters that are about to happen to close off this year? Given that, of course, there are a number of challenges that the country is facing. I don't want to talk about the challenges, but from a data perspective, do you feel that we are in the right space in terms of seeing an increase in terms of data collection?
Yeah, I'll only talk to what we have collected. The good news is, let's start with pre-COVID level. Before we were hit by the pandemic, we were sitting at 10,305,000. Then due to the hard lockdown, we registered our lowest level of employment, which is 9,651,000. As we speak, 3 out of 8 industries went back to the pre-COVID level. That is your mining, manufacturing, and community services. That is what I can say, based on what we have collected, the economy showing some form of improvement. That is why I can talk about the 3 industries which currently recorded a level, or recorded a pre-COVID level. However, the overall, we are not there yet. Like I indicated, pre-COVID level, we're sitting at 10,305, rather 10,305,000. That hard lockdown, the first hard lockdown, we went down to 9,651,000. As we speak, we're talking total employment. As we speak, we are sitting at 10,078,000. So the picture says the economy is improving compared to that lowest level we had of the first hard lockdown of 9 million. We are now sitting at 10,078,000. So it's very interesting. Like I've indicated, we cannot forecast it. It's very interesting to see how the other quarters are going to give the results.
Yeah, and I think with us being in a normal environment right now, we would hope that those stats do go up. Mr. Masupye, thank you again for joining us so much on Hilaal Live.
Thank you. It's a pleasure.
That's Matlapane Masupye. He is Stat SA's Employment Statistics Director, giving us just a brief overview in terms of the quarterly employment statistics. Good news in that regards, but of course, so much challenges that our economy is going through right now. Least of all, of course, the petrol price increase that kicks in tonight. It's really not good news. I'll have more on that in our news bulletin, so do stay tuned to Hilaal TV. We're going to be crossing over to Isha Salah and Bakatul Mukarram, and after that, I'll have your latest in news. Do stay tuned.